March 6, 65. Dearest Suzie, I am very tired tonight. I was up all night last night on OD and up most of the day today. I managed to get a couple of hours of sleep early this morning, but I still feel bushed. I got a letter from you today and was glad to hear that everybody is well. Today was a terrible day for the Cobras. Of course, I didn't go with them today, but they ran into some real heavy resistance and we lost 2 aircraft. Both of them are burned up. The whole 4-man crew on one of them was lost. The 2 pilots were fine people and real good friends of mine. So of course, I'm real upset about their death. The other plane fared better. No one was hurt from that crew, but it was a terrible blow just to lose one good crew in this ridiculous war. Otherwise, I am afraid there is no news from here. Charlie and Doll are getting along fine. I still have them caged up. We had a cat come down with rabies the other day, so I have to keep them locked up for 2 weeks to see if they show any signs. I don't expect any trouble out of this, though, as they both have had rabies shots. How is Minnie getting along now? I had a letter from your mother yesterday, but she didn't mention Minnie. How are the boys getting along? Is Brett still teething? Does Brian still cry for me? How is Billy getting along in school? I miss you all very much. And I love you so much that all I can think of is getting home to you. I am lost without you. All my love, Bill. Today's letter finds Popi worn thin after long nights on duty and the loss of friends in combat. He writes with a weight we haven't seen in a while, grappling with death but still checking in on the small details of home. There's something haunting about this letter, not because Popi dwells on the tragedy, but because of how quietly he writes about it. 2 helicopters lost, 4 men killed. He doesn't name them. Doesn't describe the crash, just says the whole 4-man crew on one of them was lost. They were fine people and real good friends of mine. It's one of the few times in his writing where the emotional weight feels close to the surface. The exhaustion in this letter isn't just physical, it's the kind of tiredness that comes when grief and routine blur together. Can we assume from what he's written before that he dealt with this loss by excessively drinking, like he had admitted to before? The loss of friends was a constant reality for helicopter crews in Vietnam. The Cobras, the armed platoon Popi had just joined, flew some of the most dangerous missions in the war. Gunships like the UH-1B Huey were faster and more heavily armed than troop transports, but that firepower came at a cost. They flew lower, stayed in combat zones longer, and often became targets themselves. When a helicopter went down, there was no armor to protect the crew. Just thin aluminum skin and plexiglass windows between them and the firepower on the ground. Helicopters didn't just crash, they burned. The men who flew these missions knew how quickly everything could change. One moment you're flying next to your friends, the next, you're writing letters home about their deaths. And as a small reminder, he chose to join this platoon because it was more interesting than, quote, plain taxi driver. But what stands out most in this letter is how life kept moving. How Popi still clung to the small, ordinary routines that connected him to home. Even in the middle of morning, he's asked about the boys, making sure the base's pet monkeys, Charlie and Doll, are safe from rabies. That instinct to care for something, anything, feels like a small act of resistance against everything the war was stripping away. One of the hardest things about reading these letters is knowing how much he doesn't say. You can feel Popi trying to protect Meemaw from the worst of what he's feeling here. He doesn't tell her how those pilots died. He doesn't say how close those men were to him. He just asks if Brian still cries for him, if Billy's doing okay in school, if the baby is still teething. War forces people to live 2 lives at once. One life in the middle of danger, and another life that stretches across miles and oceans trying to hold on to the people waiting back home. In this letter, we once again see those 2 lives collide. The grief is there, just beneath the surface, but the routine wins out. Feed the monkeys, write to Suzie, ask about the boys, try to hold on until August. The photo I chose for today depicts Charlie and Doll in their homemade cage. One is grooming itself, the other is looking away through the chicken wire cage, clinging to a small rope. I'm Alex Lowy, and I hope you have enjoyed listening to this episode of Dearest Suzie, and receiving messages from the past that my Popi wrote exactly 60 years ago. I sincerely appreciate your time and interest. Please consider following the podcast on your preferred platform, and if you're enjoying it, I kindly ask that you take the time to rate the show and leave a review. Also, please follow the project on YouTube, X, and Instagram. All likes, comments, shares, and reviews will help grow the reach of this story. The links for these things should be in the description of this episode. Please feel free to email me at dearestsuziepodcast@gmail.com if you have anything you'd like to say. I'd love to chat or to hear about your stories as well. Thank you for listening, and God bless.